Maxwell is the code name for a GPU microarchitecture developed by Nvidia as the successor to the Kepler microarchitecture. The Maxwell architecture was introduced in later models of the GeForce 700 series. The second generation of Nvidia's Maxwell hardware arrived with the high-end GTX 980 at $549 and GTX 970 at $329 in September 2014. Few months later, and the mainstream GTX 960 arrived with $199 sweet spot pricing. The GTX 960 sacrifices features in order to hit a $199 price tag, effectively the specs of the GTX 980. While the 960 is based on the same power-sipping Maxwell architecture as its bigger brothers, it uses the smaller GM206 chip. This features 8 SMM CUDA core clusters for a total of 10 24 processors and 32 ROPs. The GTX 960's memory configuration isn't all that impressive. Its 2 GB of GDDR5 are accessed using a 128-bit wide bus, which falls behind AMD's cards. The Radeon 280X uses a 384-bit interface, while the R9 285 relies on 256-bit hardware. The GTX 960's memory bandwidth sits at 224 gigabits per second, which is higher than the R9 285 but lower than the R9 280X. At a later stage, some manufacturers produced 4 GB versions of GTX 960. These were often criticized as useless move, as titles that would use so much VRAM and actually gain advantage over 2 GB versions would already run too slow on those resolutions and settings, as GTX 960 didn't have enough compute power and memory bandwidth to handle it. Evidence of Maxwell's increased efficiency can be seen at the top of every card. The GTX 960 requires just one 6-pin power connector, which compares well to AMD's hardware. The R9 285 needs 2 6-pin connectors, and the R9 280X needs a 6 and 8-pin plug. The TDP of 960 is just 120 watts. It's 50 watts lower than the older 760, and 70 watts lower than the competing Radeon R9 285. The card in this video is from Asus. The exact model is Asus Strix GTX 960 DirectCU 20C. As the name implies, it's overclocked. The base clock is 9% faster, the boost clock 10%, and the memory clock with 3%. Unfortunately, during delivery, one small pin of the card broke. This pin holds the GPU shroud. There is another way to keep the shroud in place, but sometimes the plastic shroud moves a little, so the airflow is not perfect. I am testing the card with an Intel Core i5 4590 GPU and 4 GB of DDR3 memory in dual channel. The gameplay is in full HD resolution. I had issues with one game only, Atomic Heart. It crashed after a few minutes of gameplay. The 960 is listed in the minimum system requirements, but I guess the game is not very optimized yet.
hostile UAV in the area. Enemies deployed a counter UAV. Enemy UAV active.
Is it my birthday already? Contact with target. I'm out of light ammo. I'm out of light ammo.
Clean kill.
I got the spike. Turret out. Spikes down. Initiated. Bot coming back. Caught two.
It's good hygiene. Pontius is...
Trying to find that ghost.